Hello, Charlotte. Do you want to do a video?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry. I'm okay. What's up, guys? Danny here from the Lassercast, along with
Charlotte.
Charlotte and her new
haircut
and her Chucky shirt. And we are going to be talking about a combo today of Saw 2 and 3.
Saw 3.
Yes. We watched the parts 2 and 3 back-to-back days, and we did a reaction to the first Saw movie, and we both really like Saw. Saw 2 and 3, I think we both liked, although you started to get a lot more scared, and you reacted, bless you, you reacted a lot differently to parts 2 and 3 than you did to part 1, right?
Definitely.
So I wrote down, when it comes to the Saw movies, there's 3 G's. I'm a history teacher, and when we talk about the 3 G's, usually we're talking about exploration, and it's
I'm fine.
And it's God, glory, and gold. Well, here with the Saw franchise, the 3 G's are the games, the gore, and the grossness.
Aren't gore and grossness just the same?
They're part of the same thing, but something can be gory without, something can be gross without being gory. You know, like the pigs in part 3. Like that was just
gory.
gross. Yeah, exactly. Saw 2 and 3 way up the gore and the gross out stuff from the first one. One of the things I love and that we mentioned in our Saw review was how most of the stuff is psychological. They trick you into thinking you're going to see all this disgusting stuff. You don't see him cut his leg completely off.
You see him slit this much, and this much blood comes out, and then it's just like it's calmly like, okay, we'll make this movie okay.
Yeah.
Here.
Saw 2 ups the ante a lot, and then Saw 3 way ups the ante. It took us a day and a half to get through Saw 3, and there were parts I had to fast forward, and just because she didn't like it. And she's seen The Exorcist, so she can handle some gross out and some gore, but there was just Saw 3 comes at you like boom, boom. So let's talk first about Saw 2. Saw 2 is the first time that we get director Darren Lynn Bousman. And Darren Lynn Bousman would basically take over this franchise from James Wan for a while anyway. He directs parts 2, 3, and 4. He's a co-writer on those movies. And he is actually coming back to direct Spiral from the Book of Saw, which comes out next week, the latest movie. Well, he left after Saw 4, and if you haven't seen it, go watch Repo the Genetic Opera. It is so much fun, and it stars Anthony Stewart Head from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yeah.
No way!
Yeah.
Wait, I didn't even know that was him.
Yeah, that's him. It's really, it's so much fun. I think it's streaming for free, either on Prime or on Tubi, but either one, check that out.
Tubi.
Saw 2 is essentially 2 movies in one. You have the story where the cops basically find Jigsaw in the first 10 minutes. And
you think it's all over.
But yeah, I mean, you're like, oh.
They found Jigsaw, movie ends.
Yeah, we even made a joke about, wow, this is a short movie. They found him and roll credits. But obviously.
So, his Eric Matthews?
Mm-hmm.
Eric Matthews' son is trapped in this big room, and he has to save him. And he's crying, and he just needs to. And Jigsaw's just talk with me, and you'll find your son. Talk with me, and
you'll find him
son.
in a safe place.
A really safe place.
Yeah. This is the movie that really establishes that Jigsaw is very, very semantical and very literal. So literal. If you just listen to what he says, you'll get out of things.
And in the room, we find a bunch of new characters, except the only one who we know is Amanda, who is the girl from the first movie who gets out of that big trap where...
The reverse bear trap.
Yeah, the reverse bear trap.
Oh, that reminds me. Let's talk. The opening scene of Saw 2 is the scene with the helmet. The guy wakes up and he has this kind of like medieval torture device helmet on, and he has to get the key.
I mean, every movie that has one of those, you know they're gonna die.
Well, I mean, Amanda had the bear trap on. So this is what's interesting. I realized this as I was watching Saw 2 and 3 back to back. Amanda woke up with the reverse bear trap. And, you know, Jigsaw is always about how much blood would you shed to stay alive. You know, Amanda doesn't have to shed her own blood. She has to get the key, which is inside of the guy's chest in the room with her. So she has to kill him to get the key to save herself.
I'd kill you to save myself. I'm
Thanks.
kidding.
Everybody else has to commit some kind of terrible thing to themselves, including this guy who has to dig the key out from behind his own eye to get... and of course he doesn't make it.
He couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I just let myself die.
Well, that's what he does. He basically just screams for a while until... Venus... Oh, sorry. Venus fly traps onto his head, the mask. Really cool scene.
That's a way to kill me. Flick my nose and I'll die.
So... Charlotte brought up the idea that the second part of this movie is this big game that takes place in this house. But before we get to that house, Eric Matthews, played by Donnie Wahlberg, is called in to talk to Jigsaw. And Jigsaw says...
Jigsaw tells him what to do, but...
Well, he tells him he has his son. And so that's why the movie just doesn't end there. You know, the movie just doesn't end with, oh, we caught Jigsaw, let's go home. He has Eric Matthews' son, and he tells him, if you sit here and you talk with me, you'll find your son in a safe place. And
everyone's like, okay,
maybe
the door to the house opens, and the boy can run out.
We find out that the cops find video footage of this house where Daniel Matthews, Eric Matthews' son, is amongst a crew of people in this house, and they all have something in common.
They're all criminals.
And there's all poison filling the house. And if they don't get out of the house at a certain point, they're just going to die of the poison. I'm not going to go through who all these characters are, but Charlotte said, and we're going to give spoilers, by the way, for Saw 2 and 3, there is a connection. They are all criminals, but the connection is that the police officer that arrested them was Eric Matthews, and that he pulled some shady cop business to get them all arrested, including, in some cases, setting them up, or not following the Miranda rights, whatever. He pulled some shady business to get all of them locked up. And so if they find out that Daniel is his son, very likely they will kill him. I just want to bring up, obviously you said Amanda is in the house, which...
It's kind of weird because she has short hair, and then it's... How long is it from 2...
from part 1 to 2?
No, from part 2 to 3.
Well, part 2 to 3 is pretty much like...
movie-wise, how long is it?
Oh, I mean, I would guess a few months later, because like you said, her hair grows out.
Yeah, and we end up knowing that...
Yeah, let's get to that in a few minutes. The first thing that you said was, wait a minute, why is Amanda there? Because Amanda survived her test in the first movie. Why would she be back in this house? Like I said, I'm not going to go through everybody in the house. Some of them are shadier than others. And then you have Xavier, this played by, I believe, Frankie G, who's just this awful human being, only cares...
It's what I call Biddy.
Yeah, our cat.
A psychotic man.
Yeah, Biddy's a girl, and she's sleeping peacefully right now. But some of the characters, and this is a problem for me with the Saw franchise on the whole, is that some of the characters are just so detestable that it's hard for you to invest in them. And a few of the characters in this house, particularly this character, Xavier, who is acting like a villain, so we're not supposed to identify with him, but it just makes it so hard to care about things that are going on.
We meet this guy, what's his name? The guy who gets burned.
Oh, Obi, yeah.
Obi.
Oh, in the...
He's just so creepy.
Yeah, he's very creepy. And he gets... So basically, there's poison gas filling up this house, and they have to go into the... they have to find these needles, these... what do you call them? Shots that will give you the antidote. So he climbs into this big oven to find it, and it doesn't go well for him.
Xavier's just so mad when he's like, I need the needles!
Yeah. What was the grossest, most creepy scene in Saw 2? Because for most people, they agree. What happens to Amanda? What does Xavier do to Amanda? Do you remember? He picks her up and he drops her.
Oh, drops her in the big pile of needles. Her screams just make me feel...
Yeah. I think universally when people think of Saw 2, it's Amanda being dropped in the needles. She gets basically dropped in a pit of dirty syringes where she has to find a key. It is intense. It's horrifying because nobody likes getting shots.
Like, Xavier didn't care. The others were just shocked, and Daniel was the only one who's helping Amanda when she got out.
Yeah. But that's what I mean with, elevating the gross and the gore in each movie. Saw 2 has a few scenes that are just like... Ugh. There's a scene towards the end. Each character has a number on their back.
And, of course, Xavier could just be like, hey... Can I check your back for a second?
Yeah.
Like, I could just be doing this.
It's literally,
okay,
yeah, it's literally so simple. So it's like, hey, we all have numbers on our backs. There's a code. Let me look at yours. And then you look at mine. Instead, Xavier will be like, show me your fucking neck. And he'll, threaten somebody. And then when it comes to his own neck, he takes a knife and he cuts his own skin off. It's gross. It's absolutely gross. There is a major twist. Just like with Saw 1, there's a double twist here. The first twist is that...
Wait.
Go.
So I think he's trying to say that the one twist is that the recorder, the cameras, it was on pause, and when it wasn't live what they were seeing.
Exactly. So you're meant to think that this is a time-sensitive situation because you're watching live video footage of everyone in that house. You find out at the end
that it isn't live. It was on pause.
Live. It's pre-recorded footage. This has already happened.
So that when Eric Matthews comes, everyone's dead except Amanda, of course.
Eric shows up to the house. He figures out where that house is. He shows up there. He finds the bodies all over the floor. He finds the dead bodies. He ends up downstairs where he ends up in the basement in the bathroom from the end of the first movie.
So we end up knowing that the house, the bathroom, it's all just the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And that leads to twist number 2, and that is that Amanda...
is that little pig that
she's wearing the pig mask.
Yeah, the pig
Amanda
that keeps killing everyone.
Yes. Amanda, after she survived her test in part 1, she basically joined the cult of Jigsaw, and she became Jigsaw's right-hand woman, and basically helped him...
twist number 3, and that is... Remember when at the beginning of Saw 2, in 10 minutes in it, we said, Jigsaw said that Daniel's in a safe place.
Oh, it turns out...
There's a safe in the room that he was in, and he
whole time.
Yeah, and Eric Matthews just needed to wait a nice 2 hours, and then he'd find his son. It was just that easy.
He says, if you just stay here and talk to me, you'll find your son in a safe place. When the timer runs out, a safe, literally next to where Jigsaw was sitting, opens up, and there's...
You should have seen Carrie's face.
Yeah, and Carrie, played by Dina Meyer, is one of the... She's Eric's old partner. She's one of the cops there.
Nancy.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, curly hair brunette.
Yeah,
in a horror movie. So that's Saw 2. I really like Saw 2. I think Saw 2 does what any good horror sequel should do. It advances the story, the plot, and the legend of the first movie, but it also ups the ante in terms of death, gore.
In Saw 2 and Saw 3, you really got to remember from Saw 1, like, what happened. Because mostly in Saw 3 and 2, you need to find out what happened in Saw 1.
Yeah, but...
So you can't really watch Saw 2 and 3 without watching Saw 1.
Yes, the original Saw is very important, but part 2 pretty much starts with a new story. Because really, aside from Jigsaw and Amanda, you don't really need to know anything plot-wise from part 1. Part 2 begins the next series of movies are all going to be based off part 2, which is where the Darren Lynn Bousman, Lee Winnell connection comes in. Lee Winnell, Adam from part 1, wrote the first movie. He co-writes the second one with DLB, Darren Lynn Bousman. He also co-writes part 3, and then that would be his exit from the franchise. And I think you can see, once Lee Winnell leaves, the franchise starts to go in a slightly different direction. In fact, I would argue that the Saw trilogy, parts 1, 2, and 3, are probably the strongest aspects of it. We're going to play a game. So let's talk about Saw 3 a little bit, because you had some problems with this movie.
Mm-hmm. So, we meet this girl named Lynn. Her name is Lynn. And she's a surgeon in this hospital, right? Or she's just a doc? Yeah, she's a surgeon.
No, she's a surgeon in the ice cream factory.
She's a surgeon in this hospital, and there's a little boy who got hurt.
We don't need the full plot. Just I meant what? Why did it take you so long to get through? Because you were the one that said, I can't watch this, and we had to keep pausing it and
because it was just so gory and it was just gross and baba.
Yeah, Saw 3 ups the gore and grossness to a new level, and also it's right off the bat. Saw 1, you remember the reverse bear trap scene with Amanda. Saw 2, you remember the Venus flytrap scene at the beginning.
At the beginning of this movie, kind of at the beginning, like close, we see this guy, what was his name, Troy?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, with the chains? Yeah. Yeah.
And the worst part, it was connected to his lips.
So, in the first, I want to say 10 to 15 minutes of this movie, you get Eric Matthews, who we didn't mention at the end of Saw 2. Eric Matthews gets locked in the bathroom from the end of the first movie by Amanda, who he had set up to go to prison.
Game over.
So he's now stuck with his leg in a shackle in that original basement. He breaks his foot to get out of the chains in a scene that in and of itself is almost more disgusting than anything in the first two Saw movies. Right? That opening, like, we were both like, so there's that. Then it immediately goes to Troy, who is chained up in a classroom. And what's interesting about this is Jigsaw always says that his games are meant to be, they're setups where if you can survive, you live, like
it's
Amanda.
It's kind of like Amanda's the murderer.
Well, no, Amanda is the murderer because Amanda sets up these games. Again, spoilers. Amanda is helping because John, in this film, Jigsaw, Tobin Bell, he is basically bedridden with his brain tumor, with the cancer, the whole movie. The reason you mentioned Lynn, the reason she's important is because she's kidnapped as a brain surgeon. She's kidnapped to basically take care of Jigsaw the whole movie.
But the thing is that his heart rate is connected to her little device,
yeah.
And if his heart rate goes down and his heart just stops, then those bullets will go off and shoot and explode her head.
Yeah, it motivates her to keep him alive when his life determines her life. But again, that's a separate game. Again, back to the first 10 minutes. You have Eric breaking his foot. You have the Troy chain death, where he's able to basically get everything out except for the one in his jaw, which would kill him if he got it out. And then the room was sealed shut, which meant he couldn't have survived anyway. And then Carrie gets killed.
Carrie, yes.
Which you didn't like.
I didn't like because she was like so cool.
Yeah,
So she gets kidnapped by Amanda, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's in her bedroom, and she's watching the tape recording of Troy, right? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, Troy. And she kept watching it until the tape, it just wouldn't work anymore. And then she saw something like about her.
Yeah,
but it was live.
I think they zapped into a live video feed of her being filmed
From the closet door.
Here's the thing. If you were going to keep the police in this movie, we meet Hoffman, who, if you manage to make it through Saw 4, you'll see Hoffman again. He was only in this movie for like 30 seconds. But you meet him, Lieutenant Rigg, who was in part 2, has a brief part in this movie. He's also in part 4. So you're going to keep the cops there. And Carrie was such an important character in part 2. Killing her in this movie, I think, was a big mistake, because I think she was a likable character. And this franchise wants and needs for likable protagonists. My biggest problem with Saw 3 is that the central character of this movie is Jeff, played by Angus Macfayden, and I couldn't stand him. And he's a grieving father. He has reasons to be angry, and I just didn't care because he's such a dislikable character. I liked
him.
I don't know.
I liked him.
It's not a bad... Like, I'm not saying bad about Angus Macfadden's acting. He did a good job. It's just, to me, the character was written to be so... he's such an unlikable protagonist. That I couldn't get invested in his journey, his games, and...
He has to save, like, 3 people.
Yeah, and like, one of the people is the judge who presided over the case involving his son. I mean, the judge didn't do anything wrong.
No, okay, so the first one he's trying to save is this girl locked up in a freeze thing.
Yeah, the freezing thing.
That scared me the most because I hate seeing people freeze.
Yeah.
And, like, her screaming just made me scared.
Yeah, the other thing is, and again, his interactions with each of the 3 characters that he's supposed to save, it's this woman who you're bringing up, who was a bystander who watched his son's accident. Then it's the judge, and then it's the guy
who actually killed. See, I thought it was Lynn gonna be killing him, but no.
Oh, yeah. His interaction with each of those 3 characters is exactly the same. It's like he yells at them, he curses them, and then he finally, when it's a little bit too late, decides, all right, I'll go and try to save you. And it just, it never works out. The scene that I'll talk about in terms of that really grossed me out, and Jigsaw says my favorite device that he ever created was the rack.
The rack?
Yeah, we fast forwarded through the rack because you didn't want to watch it. The rack is, to me, that's where Saw kind of jumped the shark. Saw 3 jumps the shark in terms of, like, this movie has now become more about grossing you out than it is about making these compelling, can they survive the games aspect to it.
I had a dream last night about being trapped.
Yeah, the rack it's slow. It shows everything, and it shows it to a point where, again, you're not watching it getting scared. You're watching it just going like, and I don't know. To me, Saw 1 and Saw 2 are very, very good. Saw 3 takes a dip. Not a huge dip. I don't think it's a bad movie. I just think it takes a dip in this regard. What I will say is the story with Lynn, as Jeff is making his way through the game, Lynn, with the exploding necklace around her neck, has to do brain surgery on Jigsaw.
It's pretty gross, but it's not the best. I mean, it's not the worst.
It's not the worst, and it's so cool. She's using a power drill and a handsaw to get into his brain, to relieve the pressure. I wrote down brain surgery is awesome. Like, that is a great scene.
I was like, why is he saying odd? Half of his head is missing.
Yeah. One thing, though, is this whole brain surgery scene is showing that there's a lot of tension between the fact that Jigsaw is being very friendly to Lynn, played by Bahar Sumek, and
Amanda's the one who's
Amanda is not handling this well. Shawnee Smith has she's great in this movie, and she does a full like meltdown. She's playing like this, almost like a jealous lover type, where she doesn't want Jigsaw paying any positive attention to anybody else but her.
She's not important to me.
Oh yeah, and you find out, again, spoilers, here we go, that the game was for Jeff, obviously.
But it was for Amanda to test her, and I forgot.
Well, yeah, because Jigsaw knows that Amanda is basically violating the rules that Jigsaw sets out. You set up a game. If the person makes it out, live or die, make your choice. If they survive the game, they get to live, just like Amanda did.
I still don't know if Lawrence lived.
Oh, yeah. You don't. But Amanda has been rigging the games so that no matter if the person does everything right, Kerry has this device where it's put into her rib cage, where if she doesn't put her hand...
She got
But that's the point. That's the point. She got the key out of this acid, melting the skin off her hand, and unlocks the device, but Amanda rigged it so that it didn't matter. It was going to kill her anyway. And remember, he says to Amanda, I hate murderers. So he was testing Amanda to see if she could to get over her like murderous impulses. Amanda can't. She's too jealous. She's freaking out. She ends up shooting Lynn, which then Jeff makes it in at the end, sees that his wife has been shot.
And we find out Lynn's his wife.
We find out Lynn is his wife. We didn't know this the whole movie. He shoots and kills Amanda while this whole reveal is going on in like typical Saw, let's show you everything that you missed in the last 5 minutes. And then we get the final moments of this film.
Jeff doesn't know that device is connected to the heart rate, so he kills Jigsaw.
Let's set it up. Lynn has been shot, but
she isn't dead.
But she's not dead, and there's a chance that she might be able to survive. Jeff confronts Jigsaw, who's still alive, and Jigsaw says, your final test is me. You can kill me if you want. There's a table full of weapons. Kill me if you want. Or you can show me mercy. You can let me live. And you could take your wife and go home. And he says, I forgive you. And then picks up this big motorized saw and kills Jigsaw. Throat slash.
By the way, Amanda's dead.
Amanda's dead, but we know that if Jigsaw dies, the thing around Lynn's neck is going to explode. And as he dies, he tells Jeff via the recorder, you messed up because Lynn's head explodes. We also find out that their daughter had been kidnapped by Amanda, and now we don't know what's going to happen to the little girl because nobody's alive to tell Jeff. So Jeff, he done fucked up big time at the end of this movie.
Hey, I'm right here.
It's okay. You watch Saw. And again, that goes back to my dislike of Jeff as a character. It's like, this guy is a grieving father, a grieving husband and father who still has a little girl. To me, a married man with kids, this is a guy who I want to identify with, and I just can't because he's such an asshole, and he makes such impulsive decisions that he ends up...
poopy head.
Yeah, he's a big poopy head. If the Saw franchise ended here, I would say that this was an epic trilogy. A great trilogy. Yeah, I think Saw 3 is a step down, but Saw 2, Saw 3, in 3 consecutive years, the Lee Winnell trilogy, as it is, because he wrote or co-wrote all 3, are great. Darren Lynn Bousman does a really good job taking over for James Wan. The cast is good. But the franchise was very successful. And in horror and in movies, if you make money, we're going to need more movies. How do you do that if Jigsaw's dead? Well, we'll find out when we get to Saw 4. Pete is coming up with a Saw 6 review. And then we are going to do a live reaction to Spiral, the Book of Saw.
Oh, okay. I'll watch that.
Well, before we watch that, we're going to watch the rest of the Saw franchise, and we're going to also do
This is a big trilogy video.
No, ranking video. Franchise ranking video.
So, actually, this is the first video where I'm going to be with Pete and you.
If you make it through, you almost didn't make it through Saw 3. I don't know if you're going to make it through Saws 4, 5,
Are
6.
They worse?
They get more disgusting, yes. Okay. So that is what we got for you here on the Lashcast today.
Beep, beep, beep.
Game over.